Hey everybody, Andrew Marston here with another episode of the Community Spotlight series where we get to know a member of the Square community a little bit better. And today we are joined by TA and motion designer extraordinaire, Shea Lord. Shea, thank you for making time today. I know you're super busy.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for having me and putting this together. And, with everybody, I think it's really cool to get to know the community that we've got that we're building here at the Square, like
Absolutely.
in real time.
Yeah, it's awesome to see because I mean you've been here since we switched from Facebook, and I feel like the community's got a little bit more familiar with each other than on the Facebook group, and so to actually be able to sit down face to face in real time and get to know people better has been a real treat for me. And you're our I know the answer to this because before I hit record we talked about it, but where are you calling from, Shay?
I'm in Chicago now, and as I was just telling you, I just moved here in August from Atlanta. So I'm a total southerner, and I'm up here now for my first winter. Like it's been snowing every day. Nothing's sticking yet, luckily, but it's a brave new world for me and my wife because she's from Florida. So yeah, it's different. And
When
I'm in
you
my basement, like my studio's down in my basement now, which is freezing all the time. Like there's no way to heat it. So it's sweaters every day. And I have a space heater right under my desk, like right underneath me. I have something creating heat. So
what brought
it's
what
different.
brought you guys to Chicago?
Um, so my wife is an opera singer and
Awesome.
she is getting her master's degree at DePaul University here. They have a really amazing program and a lot of connections to like Chicago lyric operas here, which is one of the biggest in the country. Just really beautiful, amazing. So we're here for her to go to school, and there's endless opportunities in Chicago for probably anybody, but motion design is pretty big here as well.
I guess I want to get to like maybe your move to Chicago and how that impacts what you do a little bit, but I'd love to backtrack and kind of fill in the gaps, your backstory of, you know, what brought you to motion design, where did you grow up, the Shea Lord origin story, as much or as little as you'd like to share.
Yeah, so I'm from Kennesaw, Georgia, which is it's like a northern suburb. It was pretty rural whenever I was growing up. Now it's got a pretty decent sized university there, so it's very different. But I grew up there, around Atlanta, and I think I have a common story for people my age, at least. My high school had like a video program, and so my friends and I made a lot of really silly, ridiculous videos, and then YouTube was like a brand new thing, and so we put it on YouTube, and I haven't figured out how to take them down since then. So occasionally I'll go on and like find those videos and like report them for like privacy issues.
Oh,
I'm hoping
nice.
YouTube just takes them down eventually. Anyway, so we put some really bad videos on YouTube and just had a lot of fun with it, and got into video co-pilots, tutorials,
Andrew
and
Kramer. Yeah.
went all the way through Andrew Kramer's stuff. And I was like, well, I know how to do this, and I didn't have plans for college. So um, I decided to study film because it was just already something I was passionate for and had a little bit of skill for, and went to SCAD to study film and television, which was an experience, um, a good one, I would say, for the most part. And
Beautiful city
yeah,
though, Savannah.
it's gorgeous. I mean, I would say the downtown area where they funnel the tourists through is gorgeous.
Yeah, that's where I've been, so
But
that's all I know. And so, film and television, how much of your Andrew Kramer After Effects knowledge ended up go transferring into what you were studying?
well, it definitely helps, and I think that um, I've gone full circle like twice because I went in kind of doing like the post production side of things, and already having a lot of skills with that. And then the great thing about the film program at SCAD is that it's incredibly hands on, and they have a very nice program with lots of like just the best equipment. And you got to be hands on with all this amazing equipment and cameras and lights, and having a lot of field experience. Excuse me. So I learned all about being on set and cinematography and studying directing, and lighting was probably one of my favorite things to do. And so my first jobs out of college, I was doing more of that than editing. But like the editing side of things ended up being like, oh, you're really good at that. And it was also easier to me. Like I didn't always want to be on set at like 4 a.m. or something.
Not a
So
lot of
I just
people do.
started kind of, yeah, I was just kind of veering off towards the post production side of things for lifestyle reasons. But having that, and then like whenever I started getting into 3D, knowing how to light and know how cameras work and how lights work in real life is has been hugely helpful getting into the 3D world where it's mimicking reality, right? And even in the 2D world, like you're in expression session right now, and the focal plane exercise, for instance, you're using the camera inside of After Effects, and like kind of knowing how that works IRL and like what depth of field is. I feel like it's helpful for that one.
Oh yeah.
But so that knowledge just it comes in handy all the time in ways that I wouldn't have expected. And well, I mean, I didn't plan to be here, I should say.
So, where did you hope to go right out of college?
When I tell you I had no idea, I really didn't. Like I went
Okay.
into college because I didn't really have plans, and SCAD accepted applications very late. So I was able to just sort of get it in and continue and keep going. I don't know. I actually, if I take a step back now and think about what I really enjoy, I think it's more of like the writing side of it,
Mhm.
and creating the story and the narrative. And I guess that leans more into direction. But for me, I've always been like a means to an end kind of person, kind of DIY. So
Yeah.
in my head, I think learning all these things and learning how to do it was a way for me to be like, well, I can't afford maybe to put on these productions every time I have a story idea, but if I learn how to animate it, I could do that pretty cheaply.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And like, so how did you? Because now you're a freelance motion designer as well as a TA.
mhm.
How did you get from um, like production work on set to just now full time at your computer animating?
I let's see. I got an internship while I was still in school that turned into a job, and it was just like an internal, like a house team for this company called NCR, which is like one of those companies you've never heard of, but then once you see their logo, you realize they're everywhere. It's kind of like Big Brother E, actually. Um, and so I started working for them and just doing a lot of post production, and then so I was on an in house team there, and that director, the director of I guess creative services or whatever it was called at the time, he left and went to the Tennessee Valley Authority and brought me with him. And then I was in Chattanooga for a while, and it was a ton of production, but we got to like travel around the state or the Tennessee Valley and everything that includes. We were going inside of like nuclear plants and all these like crazy facilities that they have. Like they
That's
have
pretty cool, though.
yeah, they have this place called Raccoon Mountain, which is it's a mountain, and they have a lake at the top of it. And so you literally they like it's like hydropower. So they drop the lake down
Uh,
some tubes through the mountain, then it generates electricity. And then when they have spare electricity on the grid, they pump it back up to the top. So it's kind of like a battery. It's like a big
hmm.
physical battery.
And it's all run by
But to get
raccoons,
there,
and that's why it's called Raccoon
yeah,
Mountain. Okay,
on wheels.
I knew it. I knew it. Okay, cool.
But like to get in there, you literally go like into the side of the mountain, and this big like James Bond door comes up, and you drive through this tunnel. It's just like crazy cool experiences. But so I was there getting a lot of experience, and then as I was there, I was just adding more and more animation to my toolkit, and adding it to the videos bit by bit and learning and teaching myself. And so then I met who would become my wife, and she was in Atlanta, and I was like, well, I need to move. So I started applying to some places, and I thought I had one in the bag. So I just like I quit. I put in my notice, and I was waiting it out, and I ended up going through like so many interview things. And at the last second, it went to somebody else after like four
Oh
interviews.
man,
And I was
that's
like, oh,
brutal.
shoot, I don't know what I'm going to do. But then they were like, um, on the same phone call, they're like, yeah, it's it's going to someone else, but we would still really like to work with you if you're the contractor. And I was like, yeah, oh sure, I'll do that for you. So kind
Yeah.
of me. It's like I needed something. So I started doing work as a contractor with them, and they had a ton of work to do. It was actually with um, a, a studio that's called Studio Now, and they kind of build internal teams within bigger companies. So
Mhm.
this particular team was working inside of Coca-Cola, but it was the agency. So I got work from a bunch of different like large brands, which is an amazing way to start building a portfolio when you have nothing.
Yeah, and you can put
um,
them on your website as like I contributed to this brand, and I
yeah,
mean that means something to clients for sure.
it does because there's a trust factor. Like, okay, if you're good enough to work for a brand, like the larger the brand, the more liability you're putting on yourself whenever you're working with that brand and those assets. So that means that people who had a lot at stake put their trust in you, and it worked out.
Mhm.
Hopefully. So I started contracting with them, and um, they had a ton of work. I was able to support myself. And then, as what happens often with studios and their producers, like those producers eventually left that studio and went to other studios and branched out, and they took my name with them. And then I had more clients that way. And I started finding my own clients. So it really just grew from that. And so, frankly, I was lucky. I made a stupid decision, and
Or
it
fortuitous.
it worked out. Sure,
Yeah, fortuitous. We'll say fortuitous for sure. But
fortuitous. It was well executed and planned fully. Yeah.
absolutely. And so that was all in Atlanta, and you just moved to Chicago. How has the move impacted your career essentially?
So I guess I haven't been here that long, but not a ton has changed yet. And I've still got a lot of my same clients. I'm still pulling in a lot of clients, but I have been looking at like there's a lot of amazing Chicago studios here that it's kind of like on my list to reach out to at some point, probably over the holidays, because I'm trying to give myself a holiday break this year.
It's tough as a freelancer, like to find a break sometimes. I mean, you're kind of always on the clock if you want to be.
Yeah, and I always need to be.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've been doing it for like 5.5 years, totally freelance, and I'm usually working like right up until Christmas Day, and then right up until New Year's or whatever. Like I'm just always going, and so this year I feel like I've started to find more stability
Mm.
with all of that.
Would you, because I know a lot of people who take school of motion courses who will probably watch this, their goal is to become freelance. They want to become Shea Lord, basically. But would you consider, she shakes her head, would you consider like going and working full time at a studio over freelance? Or how does that discussion go in your head?
Yeah, it's a lifestyle decision, I think. And I think that for me, I'm supporting my family,
Hmm.
or I'm supporting my wife, and I'm trying to support other members of my family sometimes, and
Sure.
uh, major student debt, blah blah blah. So like I've got all this stuff on me. Like I can't not work. Like I don't have somebody else there to kind of like pick up the slack. Like, oh, you had a bad month.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's not okay for me.
Right.
So
Right.
I have to make it work. And um, so if you're in that situation, you know, if like I think the reality is that those first few years you really have to like hustle slash work your ass off and
Hmm.
be willing to make sacrifices. And I
Hmm.
don't think that that's worth it for everybody. Um, if you have a family, if you need to spend time with young ones, especially,
Yeah.
that might not be worth it in the beginning. But it totally depends on your situation and your lifestyle. And there's also a part of me that like really misses having an office and friends in the office
Yeah.
and having that social aspect. Like I really miss that sometimes. And so uh 2 years ago, I started working with a company, Spanx, um, as a contractor, but like basically full time. Like they've always got stuff to throw at me. Like it's just Instagram ads,
Hmm.
easy things. Um, but while I was in Atlanta, because they're based in Atlanta, I got to go into the office and like make friends. I'm like, My God, I missed this.
What are these? You said a word I didn't. I'm not familiar. You said friends, like real life people you talk with. I don't think
Yeah,
I.
I know.
Huh.
Strange concept. I think it's like a Gen Z thing. I don't, you
Oh
know.
yeah. Huh. Maybe I'll look into that some point.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Even just being able to look over someone's shoulder and say like, "Oh, what'd you do right there in After Effects?" Or um,
Hmm.
it's not as common when you work by yourself online. For
Yeah, though
sure.
some people do like, if you're working with studios, if you, as a freelancer, you're doing more work with studios and they want you to come in, bounce around studios and they meet people that way too.
Hmm.
My freelance career hasn't included a lot of that by chance. Like it just didn't happen that way really. So
Sure.
maybe it will now that I'm in Chicago and there's a lot of places here that might want to have someone, I don't know, step in for a week or something.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of work, could we transition to where we talk about one of your pieces, which I think you have up on your screen? I mean, I've been through a lot of the stuff on your website, and this is still one of my favorites, from the texture to the visual style to the actual nuts and bolts of the animation. It's just awesome. Any chance you could maybe talk through some of the key features of this project?
Yeah, so let me turn the resolution down so I don't get stuck really. But
Sure.
oh wow, that's real bad. The idea was this was one for Coca-Cola, an internal team, and they had created this. I honestly don't even know what it was. There's like a new process. It's hard to explain. Where is it? It's called PIA. Okay, Performance Intelligence Application. That's kind of like, have you seen 30 Rock? There's like
Oh
synergy,
yeah.
synergy, synergy, you know?
Yeah, okay. 30. I'm a big 30 Rock fan.
Okay,
Oh
sorry.
right, PIA performance. Yeah, yeah.
PIA, I don't really know what it is. The internal application that they use to like organize things for people. But the people who put it together, like the team that made it, it was going to be a big deal for their processes internally. It's going to make everybody's life easier. And they basically, the whole overriding concept of this was okay, we were using just like these old tools, right? The old airplane, the right flyer, but was the right way, the best way, you
Oh, the
know?
right way. Okay.
Right. So their whole idea was like, screw these spreadsheets and old technology. Like, this is outdated and boring. And now we're going to transition to us, PIA. We're a rocket ship, and it's like way cooler and better than stupid airplanes, you know?
Yeah,
Look at
yeah,
all those charts and graphs and look at those lines.
yeah.
Oh
Classic.
no, there's a meteor coming. I don't know what that's like. Problems arise,
Oh right, right. Yeah.
but you don't care because you're a rocket ship now and you've got this blaster gun, which was added like the day before it was due. That's why it's like a block. They're like, we want to like see a big gun on there. I'm like, okay.
Okay, we'll just give you the blocks then.
Right. You use the app, you blow up the meteor, you save Atlanta.
Nice.
And yeah, that's PIA. Very exciting.
Oh, I mean it. This is the sort of thing though that I get excited about, not because of the end like not because of PIA, but because of all the awesome motion design that went into it. Like, so can we go back to the Wright brothers, the
Yeah.
flyer plane? So this, can you walk me through what's going on here? This is C4D.
Yeah, so the this is a mixture of things. Woo, let me maybe turn off the audio there. All right. So the plane is a free model that I found on Turbo Squid of the
Uh
Wright Flyer.
huh.
And I pulled that into Cinema 4D and I just, tried to like cell shade it, flat colors, and rendered it out, flying side to side. And then the camera comes up, or the camera's above it. And then after it goes side to side, the camera uh, drops down behind it. So I basically set up the shot and I knew what it was going to look like. And then I kind of mapped it out. Let me go inside of this pre-comp, which I don't know if you can tell, I actually don't use a lot of pre-comps.
I
I just
couldn't
keep
tell.
all my
Yeah.
layers out. um, so what do I got? What do I got?
Yeah. So the plane element. what elements
There we
are
go.
C4D? The plane. Okay, I see. They have your PNG sequences.
Yeah. What is this? These are clouds.
Ah, okay.
Oh, those are just, I don't even know. Okay, yeah, the clouds.
Yep.
Let me, I
So
think
those
that the background is
clouds,
white. Let's do
the
that.
those clouds are they were
This is from,
C4D
no,
as
the
well.
clouds are from Animate. So I just did those by hand.
Oh wow.
They're just blobs, you know. I don't know what I'm doing frame by frame, but you can figure it out if you just kind
Yeah.
of take the time. This probably took like 3 hours. So that's kind of a long time, but I felt like it would be worth it.
Yeah, totally.
Um, because I couldn't I was like, I know I could figure out how to do this in After Effects. Like I could make some blobby shapes and I could like, blur them and then choke them to make them stick together. But this seemed faster to me. And maybe if I knew what I was doing in Animate better, it would have been. But, sometimes you just pick a path and you got to stick with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, those the clouds that came out, those clouds there that you have highlighted, the
Hmm.
way they organically hit the I don't know, is it the wing, the top of the plane, and then like not
Yeah.
ooze, but they just sort of like grow off of it and dissolve. That hit right there, I was like, it just blew my mind. I'm like, okay, this is probably C4D, but how did she do that? And was that in After Effects? And the combination of all these elements, I think the fact that in the end result they uh, harmonize so well as one cohesive style, it just really blew me away.
Thanks. Yeah. So, oh gosh, I gotta mute it again. The the idea was like I could figure out how to do this, but again, like the way it hits it,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm sure someone who's better in C4D than I am could figure that out pretty quickly. But it just seemed like I already knew how I would approach it by hand, and they're just blobs, so I don't have to worry about line work or anything crazy like that. So like little elements like that though, like people I think are afraid of cell animation, quote unquote cell
Oh,
animation.
guilty.
But it's one of those things that you just sort of jump in and you figure it out because actually like everyone's jumping in and figuring it out. Unless you can't just jump in and figure out character animation, I don't think.
Right,
Maybe not on your first try, I should
right,
say. But these little blobby things and little accents that you can do, you can get close enough without knowing what the heck is going on.
right.
So yeah, that's go ahead.
The character that is what's where did you make the character?
Where did I make the character?
Is that After Effects or C4D? I also know almost nothing about C4D, just kind of what I've picked up here and there. But this looks like, if I had to guess, this looks like an After Effects rig at this angle. But when you switch to the behind view, that's where I'm like, did she fake 3D it or is it just all C4D?
I think there was a little guy inside the Turbo Squid file that I got. And so he's just on there for the first part, like whenever he's just flying around. So there's just a little dude on there.
Yeah.
And I just colored him appropriately.
Right, right.
And then it's an After Effects guy. And then I think like the wavy hair and it's hard to see because they had me color correct it to look old, and so
Yeah.
now all the colors are bad. But I think like the Coke flying out of the bottle and the scarf is all animate again, like just
Mm.
off the top of my head trying to figure out
Oh, it's fine if you
what
don't.
it would be.
Oh, exactly. um, and so you did the boards, the style frames, like you did the whole design, and then you also did the animation. Um,
Hmm.
how long was this process? I'm sure it sounds like it was probably a big project.
It should have been much longer than it was.
Oh, really?
This was 2018. I was not treating myself well as a boss.
Gotcha.
I think this was probably a half-week project.
Wait, say
Um,
you cut out just for a split second. How long?
2.5 weeks, I think.
No.
Yeah, it was
Whoa.
very, very fast.
Jeez.
And I know that
It
is
turned out
unhealthy.
amazing. I really would have guessed like maybe 2 3 months because you got to get the approval, Coca-Cola, and then you got you know to actually design it and animate it. Wow, you
Yeah,
must.
I mean, I'll give this to Coke, like they're very fast with their feedback.
Yep.
But that's producers doing their job. yeah, it was insanely fast, and I had to do the boards, in just a few days, and kind of just they they had, like the script and stuff. And part of this too is like the writing. So the producing and the setup, like when they handed me a script with like ideas for what this should look like. So I'm not totally ideating from scratch. I didn't come up with the Wright brothers concept.
Yeah.
So they knew like we're going to be looking at the Wright brothers, and then we're going to be talking about spreadsheets, and then we're going to have a spaceship somehow. So I didn't have to think too much about the concept, which takes a lot of time, particularly like if you're like, I feel like that is where the approvals really can get like you can dig yourself into a hole trying to figure
Hmm.
out what it's supposed to be.
Um,
But they also have low standards in terms of like what it looks like. They're like, yeah, it looks good,
Oh
whatever.
well, don't say. I mean, even if they had low standards, I think this. I mean, if they even if they had high standards, this would pass. It just stands out as a real, especially the texture and the aesthetics that you're able to pull off. I mean, 2.5 weeks. Geez,
Thanks.
that's
Yeah,
amazing.
it was crazy, and I no, I think this one actually came out a lot better than they paid me for.
Okay. Well,
Like
it sounds
this one,
like
it just the concept hit me, and I had these ideas, and I wanted to try it out. And I think I'd also recently taken C4D Basecamp, so I was like, I'm gonna put 3D in there somehow. Like it's gonna happen.
yeah.
Um, so I was just trying things, and this is one of those projects that like everything kind of fit, and I knew exactly what I wanted in my head, and that almost never happens. So I guess it shows because you said that you liked it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I mean, just I'm getting tired just thinking about 2.5 weeks to do this whole project.
It's
Um,
bad.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna switch layouts back here because I think that the main thing that we haven't touched on that probably everybody knows you for in the square is that you're a TA with School of Motion.
Yeah.
So how did you get connected with School of Motion, and what's it like being a TA?
Well, let me pull up the screen so I can look at you one more time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Go
Um,
ahead.
so like I just mentioned, I took Cinema 4D Basecamp, and that was what got me into School of Motion. Like I wanted to learn 3D. I wanted to add that to my toolkit, and that just seemed like the best way to do it. And I think that it still is probably the best way to do it if you were where I was, which was like I knew nothing. And then by the end of Basecamp, I was, charging for 3D work. Um, and so while I was there, or like in the course, I kind of became friends with my TA, who's Luis Miranda. So he's a badass
Yeah.
and really cool guy. And we just kind of connected. And shortly after, we all ended up at a conference, like a really small conference in Orlando called Keyframes. But my wife is from Orlando, and so we have family there, and it was like affordable. And so I was like, I want to go. And a lot of people from School of Motion came, and got to meet a bunch of people, got to meet Luis in person,
Oh,
and
cool.
Shelby and Caleb Ward were there too. I think they're no longer with School of Motion, but at the time they were very heavily involved. And we all went to Disney, and they were like, oh, you should think about TAing if that sounds interesting, like you'd be good at it. Um, I was like, yeah, I think that sounds great because, well, one, I can learn a lot, and be a bigger part of that community. And really, the community is the selling point to me because that was like one of the reasons I wanted to buy the course to begin with. Also, is because at the time you got to be in the alumni group on Facebook and just meet all these people and network. And I had been working, I guess, as a freelancer for 3 years at that point, and I didn't have motion design friends because I fell into it, and then I was like working kind of in a silo.
Mhm.
So it's all about making friends. Um, yeah, so I applied, and several months went by, and then one day I got an email. Actually, it was funny because I think on I was on my honeymoon. I was in LA. Was it my honeymoon? I was in LA, and Shelby and Caleb lived there, and like we had plans to go get lunch. And that morning I got an email like, "Hey, do you want to be a TA still? Like, are you still interested?" And
That's
so
so
then I went to
cool.
lunch, and I was like, "Hey, I think we're coworkers now."
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's been a really good experience, and I've loved meeting people from literally all over the world, and it is honestly an honor to be a part of everybody's journey as they're figuring things out, and it's amazing to be able to help out that way. So
Yeah,
it's
well,
cool.
on behalf of all your students, I didn't ask them for permission, but I feel confident that I could just say thank you so much for all that you do for the community as
Uh,
a TA and on the square. It goes a long way, whether you see it or not. Um,
Thanks.
yeah, okay, let's just awkwardly transition past that moment. The I like to end these on like this on a section I call lowlights and highlights. And in the lowlights section, it doesn't have to be some big tragic event. It can be if you want to talk about something like that, but it could also just be like a time you learned a valuable lesson the hard way or a mistake you made. Um, does anything stand out as a low light so far in your career that you'd want to talk about?
um, can I take a big picture view of this and kind of just talk about like the first half of my freelance career versus the second half?
The floor is yours. You can do whatever you want.
Cool. I mean, I would say that uh well, we always have those times whenever you've got maybe too much going on and things start to converge and feel overwhelming and so on. I would say that the first half of my freelance career that was happening way too often, and I just was taking on too much work and I wasn't charging enough money, and all those things. Some of it's growing pains and some of it though was just not taking care to take care of myself. Um, and so I was actually talking to another freelancer about this recently, Austin Saylor, and I had a chat the other day. And it's like you start taking on all of these projects, and everything feels fine. You're like, oh, I can handle this on top of this on top of this. Everything's good. But then at the last second, someone has an emergency, and then someone needs things like re-rendered overnight, which happened to me last night, and suddenly everything is converging again in a way that like was never supposed to happen, but you're also like on the hook to take care of all of these things. So it's just been a big learning process for for managing how much work I take on and how much I can do and all of that also. But um, to tie into that, something that like maybe like spin a positive light on it and the learnings that I've had. Um, I have become a lot better at not just managing my time, but managing like my career, like as a profession. I've also started meditating regularly, like a couple years ago now. And I actually wrote a an article on
Oh
School
yeah, yeah.
Emotion, like
On
on the
school motion.
blog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about meditation and how I think it can help motion designers just recenter yourself and hopefully avoid the burnout, and or at least whenever you're in the middle of something very difficult, you might not be able to change your situation, but you can feel more comfortable at least in the middle of the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who hasn't read the article, how would what's the short version of how would you get into meditation if you've never done it before?
The way I did it, having never done it before or had any interest, like I was just like in a low spot and thinking like I need to find some stability. Like literally it doesn't feel like I can breathe right now. So I was like, okay, getting all these Instagram ads constantly for Headspace, and there's several apps like that. I'm sure
Yep.
the ads are everywhere. I think Calm is another one that people really like. But I just downloaded Headspace
Yep.
and they have an introductory course. I hit play, and that was kind of it. Like you kind of just listen and follow along, and it doesn't take like I think my first time I did it, I was like, okay, I need to like sit on the floor in lotus position or something. And like I made some tea and I put a pillow on the floor and I sat down and my dogs went crazy because it's just like you can't, they're like, oh, she's on the floor, like we're gonna play. But like you don't have to do that. Like now I do things at my desk. I can do breathing exercises at my desk to just kind of like calm down, recenter myself. And
Mhm.
another thing that I would just really stress is that, like, for me, I think part of why I never sought it out before I was just like absolutely down was because it kind of seemed like this sort of like mystical thing, a little,
Yep.
um, I don't know, magical or something like that. And that's just not really my speed. But what I've learned is that it's a very practical method, in my opinion. Like, it's really just basic physics, breathing. refocusing, recentering. There's a lot of misconceptions, and I just would really explore people to have the experience for themselves
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
if they're interested.
Yeah, Headspace is I use Headspace as well, and I had the same feeling um, that like, I'm not really into this like mystical meditation Zen, like another plane sort of thing, but
Yeah,
it's really practical. And like the ones on sleep, they have a whole series on sleep, have helped me
so
phenomenally.
helpful.
Like, cause my mind, as soon as my head hits the pillow, like finally gets a chance to like just go through all the thoughts that I've been putting on hold while I do, do my day.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway,
They
uh,
literally have like a sleep meditation is like for work. Sleep whenever like work is on your mind. I'm like, yes, that one. It's 10 minutes long and I don't know how it ends because I just fall asleep.
yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, just wanted to like support the heads. I'm on the headspace train for sure. Um,
Love it.
so moving on to a highlight. Can you think of a highlight from your career so far?
Yeah. I mentioned that I've been working with Spanx for a couple years, and as a contractor, uh, it's interesting because I've been there and I've been like with the team and part of things, but also like there's that wall there, that barrier because I'm not actually an employee, so I don't get involved in everything. Um, but it's been really nice, and I definitely recommend if you are in a position to have a situation like that. It's nice to have a a team that is always there, like, you can make friends and so on. I would say that that's a highlight in its own right, but also, recently, they sold the company, so, like, Sarah Blakely, like, sold Spanx to, an investment group,
Oh, right.
and
I think I read about this.
yeah,
Go
kinda made the
ahead.
news.
Please continue.
They but she gave everybody, like, a little gift
Oh, yeah,
at the end
a
of
little
it.
gift, huh?
It's a little gift. She gave everyone, 2 free tickets to anywhere in the world and 10 grand to go spend on your vacation. And at first I was like, "Oh, that's so great for everybody that I work with. I am not gonna
Yeah,
get it, and that sucks." And I told my wife about it and I complained for like 20 minutes. I was like, "I've been here forever."
yeah.
But, literally the next day, I got a message and they were like, "Yeah, so only a handful of contractors are getting it, and I got it. So now I'm trying to plan a vacation
That's
to
awesome.
somewhere."
That is so
Yeah, it's
cool.
really exciting and just like such a total random thing that I would have never expected from a client, especially not as like an employee. So really cool. I don't know. I got a bonus.
Which doesn't really happen in the freelance world.
No.
Where are you gonna go?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking because the tickets are free. It's like 2 free first class tickets, and I'm like, "Okay, I feel like I should go somewhere that's, like, really like, the other side of the world, right? Like Asia, because I feel like I could get myself to Europe, I could get myself to South America pretty easily,
Hmm.
and it wouldn't be too painful flying economy
Yeah,
to
yeah,
those
yeah.
places." So, we're, like, thinking, like, okay, Japan or maybe Seoul or maybe, like, New Zealand and Australia, like, somewhere in that area, that zone. Really don't know yet. There's a lot of pressure to figure it out.
Well, I mean, not a bad problem to have. Well, Shay, I have taken probably more time than you expected to, but I really appreciate you sharing. It's been fascinating getting to know you. I mean, because I see you as a TA and like I bump into you on the square, but to like actually hear your story has been really fun. So thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much for
you.
being here.
No, thank you. I think it's really awesome. I'm really glad that you're doing this. That like someone is out there helping build this community because I think it is a really special place to be.
I agree completely. And with that, I'm going to hit stop.